Welcome to Step 4 of the Land Use Planner, the interpretation of results. This final step allows you to visualise the expected economic, environmental and social impacts of your land use scenarios. Bear in mind that you can always adjust your scenarios by going back to the previous step. What if the preferred scenario is not projecting your expected results in terms of production, food security, employment or carbon emissions? Analysing the results can help you identify how to improve land use scenarios and possible land use plans to achieve the desired results. What you see here are a few infographics on key indicators to help you compare your scenarios. Each one is represented by a different colour. For example, at a glance, you can see that Scenario 4 offers the best forest protection, with 58% of forests still standing at the end of the simulation period in 2050. However, we decided here to sacrifice the cattle sector. In most cases, at least initially, there are important trade-offs between the different scenarios. As the facilitator, you can use these first results to guide a discussion among stakeholders on these trade-offs. This may allow you to identify possible improvements to one or more scenarios. Further down, there are other important indicators. Here is the impact on jobs. And here, the variation in the level of biodiversity and of greenhouse gas emissions from land use and land use change. Here, the indicator Access to Green Markets shows those scenarios that may provide access to markets for deforestation-free products. Only scenarios which conserve at least 80% of the original forest over the simulation period are listed here. And according to the food security indicator here, only scenarios 3 and 4 have a positive impact on local food security. On employment, there's a warning telling us that all of our scenarios have a negative impact on jobs. To understand why, we should now look at the results in more detail. Let's go to the top of the page. From the Summary tab, you can examine the summaries by scenario. For example, here, the last scenario, if we look at the indicator on employment, we now see that while this scenario would increase the number of jobs by 117%, it would also reduce labour productivity by 36% over the period. This may put livelihoods and wages under pressure over time. For more information about how each result is calculated, you can click here on Methods at the bottom right of the page. The results are based only on the data that you entered in the previous steps. There is no complex modelling involved. The tool aggregates the different costs and benefits per land use and per year. You can find important variables for these calculations and modify them by clicking on Parameters. The discount rate represents the rate by which future costs and benefits should be discounted compared with present costs and benefits. You can modify this rate, which is like an interest rate. If you were to set it at 0%, it would mean that costs and benefits in 2020 have the same value as costs and benefits in 2050, which is not generally how the economy works in reality. Another very important parameter are prices. Here, you can modify the price of all your crops and even the cost of labour or the value of carbon. We know it is impossible to predict how these prices will evolve, so you can conduct your own sensitivity analysis by checking how different prices affect the results of the different scenarios. Take time to look at the remaining parameters. If they are unclear to you, you can turn to the Land Use Planner manual, which you can access here. And remember to save if you have made any changes. Let's turn to another important tab, the detailed results. You have access to very detailed graphics displaying the impacts of your scenarios over time. If we select Economy from the drop-down menu, we can see how the annual crop production changes until 2050 under each of the 4 scenarios. This can help you understand why one scenario performs better than another. You can view the graph results for other indicators by clicking on Next. Now, one word of caution. You should not interpret the results as an accurate prediction of the future. Again, the robustness of the results depends on the quality of the data you entered in the previous steps. What's important is for you to look at the trends and the relative impacts of the various land use scenarios as an input in the multi-stakeholder discussions that will lead to important decisions on land allocation and investments in land use. Now, if you want to produce a summary of your land use planner project, maybe because it's time for you to facilitate a land use planning discussion, you can click here on Report. You will get a PDF summarizing the scenarios and the main results, and an Excel file that provides the details of calculations broken down by year. Also, don't forget to click on Export Data here if you wish to save your Land Use Planner project and go back to it later. Thanks for your interest in using this tool, and feel free to contact us if you have any questions. We wish you great success in all your land use planning activities.